So we need, moving forward, an accountability system that commonly calculates graduation rates across the country in a way that truly counts every student from the time they enter high school to the time they finish high school with a full credential, a full diploma. We need that data disaggregated. We need a requirement that those numbers increase over time to a significant level so that we do not have a 70% graduation rate in this country and think that's okay. We also need those numbers to be equally weighted with test scores. Right now we have a push-out problem in a lot of communities where because the only thing they're held accountable for under NCLB is the test scores, the easiest way to make your test scores go up is to get rid of the students who are least likely to pass. That doesn't happen much in the elementary schools, but it has happened significantly in the high schools. And let's be clear, the students who are most likely to be pushed out are often the students of color, low-income students. So these are all pieces we need to fix in the accountability. Redesign the American high school. Let me tell a story a little bit in small view for a second about what redesign the American high school can mean by talking about the dropout factories in America. Some of you may be familiar with this. We have over 17,000 high schools in America. Less than 2,000 of them, so about 10% of them, are producing half of our dropouts in America. In these high schools, it is regularly more common to drop out than to graduate. They generally have 40% fewer seniors than they had freshmen 4 years earlier. These schools are the engines of failure in many, many communities. The amazing part of, and they're specifically worse for students of color. You can see on this chart over here that while only less than 10% of white students attend a dropout factory in America, 40% of African American high school students are in a dropout factory in America, and a third of Latino students, high school students, are in a dropout factory in America. Another way of looking at this, going back to some of the segregation issues Wade was raising earlier, which are still alive and well in these communities, is that over half of these dropout factories are more than 90% minority in their enrollment and attendance. These schools are almost entirely minority schools, and they are losing more students than they are graduating. One of the amazing parts about this is that these schools often make AYP. They make adequate yearly progress. And if they don't make it, and let me give a number to that, 38% of them in a study that was done are making AYP because graduation rates don't count. So the fact that they're losing these kids may keep their scores up and help them to make AYP, but it's certainly not helping them to be successful schools. The amazing part is even if they didn't make AYP, so few of them receive Title I, the engine, the carrot and stick of high school improvement in this country, that they're not doing turnaround. They're not really subject to the requirements of change. So what we really need to do is create an investment in NCLB reauthorization that is research-based and that uses innovation and research to turn around the lowest performing high schools as part of the real way we look at a good Title I, a good NCLB role moving forward for high schools. Provide students with the excellent leaders and teachers they need to succeed. The pamphlet in front of you, the Plan for Success, talks a little bit about the importance of rewarding and incentivizing teachers who succeed with students of color, about supporting teachers in their classrooms, and about recruiting and retaining specifically teachers of color to teach in the communities where they are from. It's very important that we think about all of that as part of reauthorization, and there are good legislative proposals to do that on the table. Invest communities in student success is the next piece. And let me speak briefly to that and a couple of things that I think really are part of the discussion in reauthorization. One is around parent involvement. There's a lot of parent involvement requirements in NCLB, and in fact, the disaggregation of data and the access to information for parents has been perhaps one of the watershed pieces of this law. But there are some interesting parts where it falls far short. My personal favorite is the phrase, "to the extent practicable," which is used to get out of a myriad of requirements in that law, specifically as it relates to English language learners, parents of English language learners who need to have access to all of these things to the extent practicable, which without definition often means not at all. So we really need to think about how we make parent involvement and parent access to information and parent involvement in the turnaround a key piece. Community-based organizations are another key part of community involvement. One of the exciting things in high school turnaround is that we're finding that community-based organizations can play a really important role in high school turnaround. If you look at New York City, where some of the best high school work in the country is going on right now, they are using CBOs as key partners in making that happen. And that's part of what we need to be thinking about moving forward in reauthorization. Let me get to the last piece on reauthorization and the plan for success, and that's provide equitable learning conditions for all students. Boy, I wish we could do that as easily as we can say that. But I will say there are some important things on the table. Right now, the federal investment in high schools is pitiful. If you look in the middle here, you see a chart called the missing middle. And you see we have a pre-K through 6 investment. We have post-secondary investment, those two outside lines. Post-secondary investment on that chart, just so that you know, doesn't even include the cost of subsidizing loans in this country, in which case that line would be about double the height of what it is. That's simply the programs and the grants that are in there. Look in the middle. You see those two small lines, middle schools and high schools. That's your federal investment. That is the missing middle. As part of creating equity in this country, we need to be investing in the high schools where low-income and minority students are going to school. They are not getting the benefit of a Title I type investment. Only 8% of Title I high school students are getting Title I dollars. So really, there is very little investment from the feds in doing that. So we need to fix that with an investment in low-performing high schools and in turning around low-performing high schools. We also need to increase our investment in English language learner programs and their support for English language learners. Another area where we see a real difference in the investment in the early grades versus the high school grades that has a serious impact on students of color is in literacy. We have a major literacy program in this country for early reading, but it ends at grade 3. Unfortunately, as we all know, the reading challenges for students don't end at grade 3. In fact, they simply increase. At that point, students go from learning to read to reading to learn. And if their skills are not up to par, they will fall further and further behind. As those students enter high school, the percentages of students reading below grade level are at 70%. So really, we need an investment in adolescent literacy. I'd like to see, and I think all of the partners here would like to see, an even more direct addressing of the equitable distribution of resources in NCLB reauthorization. I think that's a challenging task and one we'll all be working on for a long time to come. But these investments at the beginning, these investments in making sure that high schools and high school students of color are getting their fair share is a good place to start and an important place to start. As I mentioned, there are legislative opportunities on the table right now to do almost everything I talked about. But if we don't reauthorize the No Child Left Behind Act, none of that will happen. Absent these changes, we will stay with the law as it is, with the advances it's made, but with all the flaws it has, for a few more years. And every year, those dropout factories will continue to lose thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of students. So really, I think for us, this is a clarion call, and we can't hit the snooze button on this alarm. It's time to do something about this. The opportunity is here. The legislative will is here in a way that I don't think we thought it could be, and it is. And yet, if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, we will miss it. Windows are short up here on Capitol Hill. Attention spans can be brief. It's time to take these opportunities and really bring home some true change in America's high schools to serve our students of color better. Thank you.